As I did last night, I'd like to begin my talk by expressing gratitude to all of the donors, lay leaders, and our incredible staff who made this last phase of the building campaign possible. Last night, I expressed my gratitude in the form of a long list of names. You can find those names inside of the program and listed on the walls of this sanctuary. This morning, we expressed our gratitude through honors on the bima, opening the ark, carrying the Torahs, and leading us in prayer. To everyone whose name appears on the walls of this sanctuary, to everyone who contributed in some way or another to this building campaign, to everyone who works here, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Many years ago, in 1990, my parents took us on a trip to California. It was kind of like a family rite of passage. I was 11, my brother was 9, my sister was 7. We flew from Chicago to San Francisco, and then we drove down the coast over the course of 10 days. We experienced all of California. We hugged trees. We visited famous island prisons. We encountered prostitutes walking down Hollywood Boulevard. And we were splashed by a whale at a theme park. And that was California. And at the end, we concluded as a family that California was a crazy, crazy place. And we would never, ever step foot in it again. We often laugh about that trip and that conclusion over family dinners. And for those of you who know me well, you know that I think that Southern California is one of the most beautiful places on earth. And I'm so proud that my entire family has made Aliyah from Chicago to Los Angeles. And I'm especially happy that Blair and I and the kids have made Aliyah from the city to the valley. I'm a big believer in Aliyah b'shlavim, that it happens in stages. There's a moment from the California trip of my youth that was eye-opening for me. We visited this eccentric place called Hearst Castle. It was summer. It was extraordinarily hot. And what better decision for my parents than to schlep all of the kids to an abandoned old mansion? Copied directly out of the visitcalifornia.com website, it describes the castle as follows. Lavishly designed by Julia Morgan, California's first female architect, as the private residence of publishing magnate William Randolph Hearst, the complex, completed in 1947, is an extraordinary temple. A temple. I remember the exact moment from my childhood when the tour guide explained that Hearst began construction in the early 1920s on the 165-room castle sitting on 127 acres of property and finished in 1947. I began to think about my family during that same exact time period, 1922 to 1947. I considered the gradual suffering they endured in Europe during the 1920s and 1930s, culminating in the Shoah. While my grandparents were inmates at Auschwitz, while my family members were being systematically rounded up, starved, shot, gassed, and burned to ash, there were contractors at Hearst Castle who might have been grounding the mosaics in the indoor Roman pool room. The idea that those two events might have occurred in the same moment was challenging for my 11-year-old self. Why do I bring this up today? Because this Shabbat morning has been etched into the planner in my soul for months and months. Known on the Gregorian calendar as February 24th, we set this date months and months ago. It can also be recognized here in the sanctuary on the Hebrew calendar as the 15th day of the first month of Adar. And for many in our Jewish family around the world, today is also known as day 141, since the brutal Hamas attack on Israel, the Jewish people, and the entire civilized world. Of all of the concerns that I had this past week, and there were many, for I now bear what I think is a Nizhnik ulcer here for the Nizhnik Sanctuary unveiling. The last one I had yesterday was, what would John and Rachel Poland think if they turned on YouTube and watched this momentous celebration of the rededication of this sanctuary? How could there be 134 Jews being held hostage, being tortured, being starved in Gaza, and we are here celebrating a milestone? I struggle with the dark dichotomy between our existence and our brothers and sisters in Israel every day. I hope with all my heart that we all do. Just yesterday, Blair walked back into the house with her eyes filled with tears. She had just been watching a video of a hostage family. Then she quickly wiped her tears away and transitioned back to us. We all stand conflicted. Thank God our kids are here with us and they're safe. And it feels incredibly unfair that our kids aren't asked to go fight. We search for ways to help support the war effort, the soldiers returning home, the victims of the October 7th massacre, and the hostage families. And in so many ways, I live every day with a tremendous sense of guilt that I'm not doing enough. Many of us wake up and have the podcast that we listen to, or the pundit Substack we read. I know it because many of you are thoughtful enough to forward me your exact preference every day. And I assure each and every one of you that your personal favorite is the absolute smartest, most insightful of them all. We are all struggling to live in two very different existences, one here and one in Israel. I felt like there might not be a way to reconcile the celebration of this sanctuary with our anguish over our family there. And then I studied the Torah this week. After our redemption from slavery, we walked out of Egypt as refugees. We received the Torah at Sinai. And God asked for everyone at that moment to make a contribution to the first ever building campaign. We were in the desert, living in schmutz, complaining about the lack of food. And you know what? We managed to contribute. And we began to build. The Mishkan, or in English, the tabernacle. The Mishkan is supposed to sit in the center of our community. It's supposed to create shchuna, or in Hebrew, neighborhood. The tribes are supposed to orient themselves in relationship to this central institution of our neighborhood. Then this week in Parshat Tetzaveh, the Torah moves from the Oscar category of set design to the Oscar category of costume design. God tells Moses to have Aaron and his sons wear special clothes. Aaron, as the high priest, wore extra special clothes, including a bedazzled breastplate with stones and a special golden headband that read Kodesh la'Adonai, holy for God. Does Aaron, the high priest, need a headband that reminds him to act holy? And why would a group of former slaves with little possessions of our own have to craft such an item out of gold? Our tradition, from the beginning, has always understood that the delivery of special messages should be adorned by special materials. The Mishkan required special acacia wood and particular skins. The temple required cedar woods, gold, and later massive Herodian stones. The script of the Torah features crowns over all of the letters to make them read fancy. The message of it all is Kodesh la'Adonai. We build it to bring a sense of God's presence and sanctity into our lives. We should each walk around with bracelets that remind us to behave holy for God. We must act as a people deserving of God's vote of confidence in us. This is a special place, not only because of the wood or the luxury seats or the technology, but also because of the message that this space conveys. Torah matters and will continue to guide our lives. This sanctuary reflects a conviction that future generations should be welcomed and inspired here to deepen our commitment to our tradition and to deepen our commitment to one another. This sanctuary will issue the clarion call, Kodesh la'Adonai. Many, many months ago, we decided to cover the wall behind me with Jerusalem stone. It was a way of espousing our value of Zionism. We selected a verse from Isaiah to highlight the stone that reads, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah u'devar Adonai miYerushalayim. From Zion will go the Torah and the word of God from Jerusalem. We wanted to express our Zionism and commitment to Israel by permanently recognizing that our destiny is forever bound up with the destiny of Israel and Jerusalem. And then October 7th happened, and the relationship between Israel and ourselves became even more crucial. We now live in a moment that we did not expect. With the rise of anti-Semitism here in America and all around the world, the gradual disappearance of rabbis and Jewish leaders, this sanctuary will serve an even greater purpose. This space will lend strength to children who enter with questions about the place of their identity in a DEI world, for adults who carry frustrations with university and employment statements and policies. This sanctuary is evidence that while the majority of the rabbinate weakens in its commitment to Israel, this one here on this bima will remain outspoken. To celebrate that message and show others the effect of a community's proud commitment to Zionism is a message needed more today than ever before. I believe that the next 25 years of Jewish life in America will probably determine our next 100 years here. How we fare and how our neighbors treat us will determine how optimistically we can all view our future here in this country. And this sanctuary is needed as a true haven for reflection, for education, for conversation, and for leadership during that time. It is time for other Jewish leaders to recognize the resonance and the rewards that accompany a message of strength, of stability, and of solidarity with Israel and with our Jewish brothers and sisters around the world. Let younger rabbis see this sanctuary and learn from it. Let our detractors see this sanctuary and acknowledge it. We are a people that builds for the future, even in dark periods. We've been that way since the very beginning. We commenced building the Mishkan when we had nothing. Following the Spanish Inquisition and expulsion, we built the city of Tzfat and crafted Jewish mysticism and wrote the Kabbalat Shabbat service. Those that survived the Shoah actually prevailed by creating families, building businesses, and reestablishing Jewish institutions and traditions. As Jews, when we show strength and accomplishment, it lends strength to one another. None of us built this sanctuary for ourselves. We built it to be enjoyed by our community and those around us. Much like our blessing when we reach the end of a book of Torah, we intend that this sanctuary strengthens us all. We draw strength from knowing that weddings have never stopped in Israel. Weddings, bar mitzvahs, and brit milah ceremonies lend us all strength. They exhibit the continuation of the Jewish people and our tradition and beliefs. They prove true the prophecy, Adonai yishma ba'arei Yehuda v'chotzot Yerushalayim kol sason v'kol simcha, kol chatan v'kol kala. May there always be heard in the cities of Judah and throughout the streets of Jerusalem voices of joy and gladness, voices of bride and groom. This morning, we lend our festivities and our voices and our strength to those struggling in the streets of Jerusalem and throughout Israel. Many, many years ago, William Randolph Hearst built a temple devoted to self-worship. It still stands as an opulent, empty castle filled with the most lavish extravagance of his time, completely devoid of any purpose or meaning. Even as a child, I walked around the castle wondering, what is all this for? The truth is that even when people lived there, it was empty. Our extravagance and this sanctuary is not empty. Much like the headband of the Kohen Gadol, this renovation reminds us of a larger purpose. This room is filled with a spirit of Kodesh la'Adonai. Everything we do and say, teach and pray, should serve as a reminder of our sense of sanctity, of our purpose of bringing godliness into the world, our conviction to lending strength to one another. May the strength and celebration of dedicating our new sanctuary bring strength and celebration to all Jewish families around the world soon. May we see the return of all of the hostages soon. May Israel win the war outright and decisively soon. May our soldiers return home unscathed soon. Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. May God continue to bless the entirety of the children of Israel with incredible strength, so that we may reach one day a time of peace. And let us all say, Amen.